never done this before. I have water, but this needs to go down a little bit. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat. Jai. So welcome everyone to this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam class. We are going to be reading from Canto 10, Chapter 53, entitled Krishna Kidnaps Rukmini, and we'll cover text 17 to 19. So, you can't hear me very well. Hare Krishna. Better? Okay, so, Canto 10, Chapter 53, text 17 to 19. We'll recite text 17 together. So we get the good fortune today of reciting the names of all these demons. Tatra Shalvo Jarasandho Dantavakro Vidurataha Ajagmush Chaidya Pakshiya Pondrakadya Sahasrashaha Tatra Shalva Jarasandho Dantavakra Vidurataha Ajagmushchaidya Pakshiya Pondrakadya Sahasrashaha. Please chant. Pondrakadya Sahasrashaha. Dantavakra Vidurataha Ajagmushchaidya Pakshiya Pondrakadya Sahash. All right, let's do the word for word here. Tatra, there. Shalva Jarasandha Dantavakra Vidurata. Shalva, Jarasandha, Dantavakra, and Vidurata. Ajagmu came. Chaidya of Shishupal. Pakshiya, taking the side. Pondraka, Adya, and others. Sahasrashaha, by the thousands. Translation and purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Shishupal's supporters, Shalva, Jarasandha, Dantavakra, and Vidurath, all came along with Pondraka and thousands of other kings. Purport: those familiar with the history of Lord Krishna's life will immediately recognize the names given in this text. The kings mentioned here maintained a deep animosity towards Sri Krishna and opposed him in one way or another. But they were all to be frustrated and defeated on the occasion of Shishupal's would-be wedding. So now I'll go on to texts 18 and 19. Yes, you can repeat after me also. Krishna Rama Dvisho Yatta Kanyam Chaidyaya Saditum Yadyagatya Haret Krishna Ramadhyaya Dubhirvitaha Yotsyama Samhatastena Iti Nishchita Manasaha Ajagmur Bhubhujya Sarve Samagra Balavahanaha. Translation and purport. To secure the bride for Shishupal, the kings who envied Krishna and Balaram came to the following decision among themselves. If Krishna comes here with Balaram and the other Yadus to steal the bride, we shall band together and fight him. Thus those envious kings went to the wedding with their entire armies and a full complement of military conveyances. Purport. The word samhata, which normally means bound tightly together, may also mean thoroughly struck down or killed. Thus, although Krishna's enemies thought they were unified and strong, samhata in the former sense, they could not successfully oppose the personality of Godhead, and consequently they would be struck down and killed, samhata in the latter sense. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militanyena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijada Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Vanchakalpataribhyascha Kripa Sindhuvyevacha Patitanam Pavanivyo Vaishnavivyo Namo Namaha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatyade Shatarane Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So here we have the list of the demons, all the opposers of Krishna and Krishna's plan, Rukmini's plan to marry Krishna. And they're all going there. And they're thinking, they already have it in their minds that maybe there's going to be some trouble, that maybe Krishna is going to come. They're suspecting. So they're saying, if Krishna comes here with Balaram and the other Yadus to steal the bride. So they don't know about the letter that Rukmini sent to Krishna. They don't know about the messenger and all that. But somehow they're suspecting. Because they know that they're kind of, what they've arranged for Rukmini is not really the most favorable thing for Rukmini, and that she probably desires something else. And so they're suspecting that something else is going to happen. So they're preparing. They're mentally and organizationally preparing for that possibility. It says here in the Sanskrit of text 18, Krishna Ramo Dvisho Yata. So Dvisho means hate or envy. Dvisha. So this is their situation, that Krishna Ramo Dvisho. All of these demons that we listed in text 17, they all have this Dvisha, or envy or hatred of Krishna and Balaram. Krishna Rama Dvisha Yata. So this word, I want to speak a little bit on this concept of Dvisha, because it's something that's also important to us, because that's why we are here in this material world. That's what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 7:27, that Icha Dvesha Samutena Dvandva Mohena Bharata Sarva Bhutani Sammohan Sarge Yanti Parantapa. That all living entities are born into delusion, bewildered by the dualities of desire and hate. So we came to this material world, and we're born into a deluding situation, born deluded by the material energy because of our dvisha, because of our envy of Krishna and our icha, our desire to be Krishna, basically, to be the supreme enjoyer, to be the center of attention. So it's important to understand what this word dvisha means. So it comes from the verbal root dva, which means two things. And so as soon as we start thinking that there's something other than Krishna, then we start believing that we can have a life separate from Krishna by interacting with those things that are other than Krishna and forgetting about Krishna. So that's the concept of duality. That's the fundamental, primordial, I guess you could say, duality that we become deluded by. And then from that, so many other dualities arise, like good and bad and right and wrong and happiness and distress and like that. So, when we think of two things, then there's a possibility that we can have a separate existence and a separate interest. So we have to be very careful to kind of monitor our consciousness to make sure that the plans that we make in our lives and the things that we're interested in are aligned with Krishna's interests, so that there's only one thing. There's only one thing. So if we know that Krishna wants this, but I want something else, then that's two things. And that's when we get into trouble. And that's when all kinds of fear arises. There's a very nice verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, chapter 2, text 37, that says, Bhayam dvitiya biniveshatasyad ishadapetasya viparyayo smriti tanmayayato buddha abhajetam bhaktyayakayesham gurudeva tatma. So the first line here is particularly relevant, that Bhayam dvitiya biniveshatasyad. So bhayam means fear. And so it's saying that fear arises when we become absorbed. Abhiveshita means because of absorption in dvitiya, in duality, in the sense that there is something other than the Lord. So as soon as we think that there's something other than the Lord, then we fall into a condition of fearfulness. Because the Lord is all good. And so everything that the Lord does is all good. So if everything is Krishna and everything is happening under Krishna's control, then everything is great. Right? We don't have anything to worry about. But as soon as we think that there are things separate from Krishna, that Krishna is not controlling, that are happening independently from the will of Krishna, that means anything can happen. You know, any random event can happen. Somebody can harm me in a way that's totally against Krishna's all good plan, and that thing may be all bad. So that puts us in a state of fearfulness and bewilderment. And that was Arjuna's condition at the beginning of the battle of Kurukshetra, right? That Krishna wanted this battle to happen. He wanted Arjuna to fight, but Arjuna didn't want to fight, right? He drops his bow, he sits down on his chariot, and he says, Govinda, I shall not fight, even though that's what Krishna wants. So, and that was the cause of Arjuna's bewilderment. So that's when he says, Prichami tvam dharma samudha chetaha, that I'm confused about my duty. Samudha cheta, my consciousness is samudha. It's just confused, it's bewildered. And dharma samudha, I don't know what is right and what is wrong, what I'm meant to do, what I'm not meant to do. And so that's our condition when we are disaligned with Krishna's plan, when we want to do something other than Krishna. And so that's what this verse is saying, that when we think that there's something else, then we have the tendency to turn away from Krishna. Ishad apetasya viparya yosmriti. So apetasya means we turn away from the Lord. And asmriti, we forget about the Lord when we turn away from him. And tanmaya yato, and basically it's saying that that's Maya. That's Maya. We fall under the influence of the illusory energy and we suffer. So then he goes on to say, Buddha abhachetam, but a person who is Buddha, a person who is wise, they worship the Lord. And specifically, bhaktyai sheyesham, that bhakti ekaya, that bhakti ekaya guru deva tatma. So they worship the Lord with only one thing, and that one thing is bhakti. So bhakti ekaya, with one pointed bhakti, unalloyed bhakti. So we need to understand that actually there's nothing but Krishna, that everything that exists is Krishna. And that's why sometimes Srila Prabhupada says that we don't say that Krishna is God, because if we say that Krishna is God, that means there's something that is not God, right? Because I'm not God, this seat that I'm sitting on is not God, this microphone is not God. So if I say Krishna is God, that means there are many things that are not Krishna. There are not just two things, there are many, many unlimited things, right? But if we say that Krishna is the absolute truth, Krishna is the param satyam, which includes everything, from which everything has emanated, then that's all inclusive. That means then there's only one thing. There's only one thing, which is Krishna. Then there's only one thing to do, which is serve Krishna, because that's our eternal nature, is jivera swarupahoy krishnara nityadas. There's nothing else to do but serve Krishna. And everything else in this world is just Krishna's energies and is paraphernalia to be used in Krishna's service. So if we have that view of the world, that everyone is Krishna's part and parcel, all the material things are just Krishna's energies. He has his inferior energies, he has his superior energies, parasya shaktir vividaya vashruyate. There's unlimited varieties of energy, but they're ultimately all Krishna, right? And so It's achintya veda aveda tattva, that they're one with Krishna and different with Krishna, but they're all meant to be engaged in Krishna's service because that's why they exist and that's why we exist. So then we can have this oneness of, Ekeha Kuranandana, Vyavasayamika Buddhir, Ekeha Kuranandana. So we need to move more towards the oneness of being totally aligned with Krishna, and then there'll be no fear because we can have faith that whatever happens is Krishna's desire, because not a blade of grass moves without the will of Krishna. And that's why all these kings, Jarasandha and Shishupal and Shalva and Dantravakra and Rukmi, they're all going to be defeated because they have an interest which is separate from Krishna's interest. They have a plan which is not Krishna's plan. And ultimately, the only plan that's going to work is Krishna's plan. Right? That's why Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Mama Vartmanu Vartante Manushya Partha Sarvashaha, that everyone follows my path in all respects. So ultimately, no one is doing their own thing. They may try to do their own thing, but they can only do that to the extent that it's sanctioned by the Lord. And it's ultimately going to lead to misery and frustration if it's unwillingly sanctioned by the Lord. So sometimes Krishna unwillingly sanctions our plans if they're not so well aligned with him. But he'll do so in a way that we get negative consequences that teach us a lesson to try to be more aligned with him. But when we align our plans with him, then we experience empowerment and support from Krishna and Krishna's devotees and everything. The universe, as they say. The universe just aligns to make those things happen because the universe is also Krishna. That's also Krishna. So, so the kings here are thinking that we have our plan, but if Krishna comes here and tries to oppose him, then, we're going to do this. We're going to fight with him. And that's their foolishness, because they don't know that the only plan that's going to work is Krishna's plan. So what is their plan? Their plan is Yotsyama Samhatatena, that we're going to band together and fight with him. But as often happens in the words of personalities in Krishna's pastimes, the Paramatma inspires them to use particular words in such a way that have alternative translations that mean something else. So Paramatma inspires them to use this word samhataha, which is mentioned in the purport, also means to be struck down or killed. So it can also be translated to mean that when we try to fight with him, we will all be killed, or at least thoroughly struck down. And so this reminds me of, when I read this, it reminded me of an episode in the 3rd canto, chapter 18, where Hiranyaksha is intending to fight with Varahadev, and he's yelling all these insults. Right? He's trying to insult Varahadev, and he calls him a mriga, which means a beast or an animal. But it said, Sridhar Swami comments that can also mean one who is sought after by great sages. So it's it's meant to be an insult, but it can be interpreted as a glorification. And Hiranyaksha also calls Varaha agya, which means ignorance, agya, without knowledge. So an ignorant, he intends it to mean that the Lord is an ignorant fool. But it can also mean that no knowledge is unknown to him. In other words, he knows everything. So this is 3:18:3. And he also calls him Suradama, which he intends to mean the lowest of the demigods, right? Like we have Naradama, lowest of men, so Suradama, the lowest of the demigods. But it can also mean the Lord of all the demigods. So in this way, their insults are interpreted as glories by the devotees. And so similarly, these kings are basically predicting their own destiny, that they're going to be struck down. It's also similar to how when Duryodhana is speaking in the Bhagavad Gita, he's saying, look here at all of, but behold all of these, powerful fighters who are prepared to lay down their lives for my sake, right? So Prabhupada writes in the purport there that Duryodhana is, when he says that they're prepared to lay down their lives, he's kind of foreshadowing that they will be laying down their lives. In other words, they're going to lose their lives in this battle. So like that. So the kings are going into it confident of a certain outcome. But the outcome is going to turn out to be totally different. And so material plans are like this. Whenever we make a plan that's contrary to the will of the Lord, then it's going to backfire. And that's what Prahlad Maharaj says in Canto 7:42. He says that as soon as one endeavors for material happiness, his conditions of distress begin. That's a good thing to remember. So as soon as we make plans to try to enjoy ourselves in this world and, begin our activities towards achieving material things or, sense gratification, basically, then that's that very moment our distress begins. The conditions of our distress begin. So we're seeing here that man proposes, God disposes. I have a plan for my enjoyment, but Krishna has, Krishna's plan is going to be the one that happens. The kings have a plan to marry off Shishupal with Rukmini, but that's not exactly what's going to happen. Something very different is going to happen. So does that mean that we shouldn't make plans at all? That we should just leave it up to Krishna? No, because there's also a saying that if one fails to plan, then one plans to fail. And nowadays in ISKCON we talk a lot about strategic planning. They need to, make plans for our projects, for our temples, for our own lives. And, we get into SMART goals and all these things, right? Planning things out and strategically. So that's important. But how can we be sure that what we're planning is completely aligned with the will of Krishna? Sometimes it can be hard to know. So when I was at a Govardhan retreat, I think it was just a couple of years ago, Sachinanda Swami was saying that we need to plan, but we shouldn't plan out, we shouldn't plan in too much detail, and we also shouldn't plan too far in advance. I have one mentee in India, and he wrote to me, he emailed me his future plan, and he had planned out everything up until 2035. And I was just like, good luck with that, because often we have our plans, but Krishna has a different plan. And so, I said, just plan a little bit, just plan the next year, or the next couple years, and you can have some tentative ideas about how it might work out, how you might like to see things. But, you have to leave some allowance for Krishna's plan and how Krishna wants to use you as an instrument in his overall mission. So what we can do is plan a little bit. Instead of planning all the way out here, we can just plan till here and kind of leave some scope there for flexibility and plan tentatively. Right? So, okay, Krishna, this is kind of what I would like to do, and I have this vision for my future, but I'm also open to whatever you would like to do with my life, however you would like to use my skills and my energy and engage me in your service. So we have to allow for that flexibility. And even though we may not be totally aware of all the details of what Krishna wants us to do, we can have a general sense, right, from Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra of what Krishna wants us to do, right? He wants us to become pure devotees. He wants us to remember him. He wants us to, purify our lives, and he wants us to chant his holy names. And we have scriptures especially like Nectar of Devotion, that actually Rupa Goswami gives a lot of details of, the 64 items of devotional service and appropriate attitude for executing devotional service. So we can engage in those processes and know that this is what Krishna wants me to do, because it's coming in the line of the acharyas. And also, like the verse from the 11th canto is saying, Bhaktyai Guru Deva Tatma. So Guru Deva Tatma means taking our Guru Dev as our life and soul, as Atma. Guru Deva Atma, as taking the instructions of the Guru as our life and soul. And like we're just singing in the Guru Vandana that Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitte Kuriya Aikya. So let the words emanating from your lotus mouth become one with let my consciousness, Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitte, my chitta, my consciousness, become Aikya, become one with your instructions. So that's very similar to this idea of bhakti ekayam, or ekeha kuranandana, that let my consciousness. So then we don't end up in this situation of samuda chetaha. Our chetaha doesn't become samuda or bewildered, because our cheta or chitta is aikya, is one with Guru Mukha Padma Vakya, with the words or the instructions coming from the lotus mouth of the spiritual master. So that's very helpful, and that's why that's, in Nectar Devotion, the first 5 items of devotional service are that one should approach a bona fide spiritual master, take shelter of the spiritual master, take initiation from the spiritual master, follow the instructions of the spiritual master, and follow in the footsteps of the previous acharyas under the guidance of the spiritual master. So then that's how we can make sure that we're aligned with the will of Krishna, through Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. And so in this way, there's no separate interest. There's not 2 things, there's just one thing. So then we're not dealing with, then it's no longer a situation of dvesha. We've given up our envy or hatred because we're agreeing to work with Krishna instead of working against him. Envy means we're working against the person. We want to bring the person down, put ourselves up. So we're like, okay, Krishna, I accept that you're the Lord. I'm following your representative. I want to work with you. I want to align myself with you. So when there's no dvesha and there's no dvitiya, there's not 2 things, there's only one thing, then we're not working anymore with dvandva, duality, right? We're no longer deluded by the dualities of delusion. And then we can engage in devotional service with determination, as Krishna says in the end of Bhagavad Gita chapter 7. And because there's not 2 things, then there's no more fear. There's no more fear. And we can be completely confident. We can be confident that I'm working with Krishna, I'm working under the orders of my spiritual master, and so we can have enthusiasm. We can work enthusiasm without doubts, without fear, without confusion. We can be utsaha, nishchaya, dharyat, very confident that everything is going to be good because I'm aligned with the all good, and that all the energies of the all good absolute truth are going to also be aligning to support me in my endeavors. So even if we may feel hopeless, we may have some big project that we want to do, some initiative that we want to start, and we may feel like, wow, that's a lot, who am I? I'm just little me, struggling with my mind and my body and senses, and so there may be so many opposing elements also. How can I possibly do this? Maybe I don't even have the skill set for it or the knowledge to do it. But, in one sense, our situation of hopelessness and helplessness that we may be feeling is similar to Rukmini in this situation, relative to all these kings who are opposing her. So Rukmini she's just a young girl, unmarried girl. She's in the palace. She doesn't have a lot of freedom. She doesn't have a lot of facility in one sense to go out and do things in the world. It's only, she just in a very, sneaky way, she has to write the letter, and then she has to trust the messenger to bring it there because she can't go there herself, and she's never even met Krishna, and she has no way to meet Krishna because she can't just say, hey Dad, let's go visit Krishna. She's just very protected and kind of controlled there. Her life is very much under the control of her elders, her father and her older brother, and people there in the palace that are taking care of her. So she has very little scope for achieving her own goals in life, you could say. And that's how she's in this predicament, that she's going to be married to someone that is horrible. And she's almost like having to accept it, but she's like, well, let me just try, even though it's kind of hopeless, but what can I do? I have to do something. And but because it was Krishna's plan, because Krishna wanted to marry Rukmini, because she's his eternal consort, then, it had to happen. So in the same way, even though we may feel hopeless, but if our plan, if our idea, no matter how, far out it may be, if it's aligned with the interest of Krishna, then it it will be supported by Krishna and facilitated by Krishna, and we can basically do anything. And a good example we have of that is Srila Prabhupada, because Srila Prabhupada literally had nothing. When he left, he had no supporters, he had no money. He was just really coming to the West on a wing and a prayer, but he was very confident that this was the will of Krishna, that his plans, that this journey was completely aligned with the will of Krishna because it had been directly given to him by his spiritual master. So he was able to have that fearlessness that comes from Bhakti Sham Gurudeva Tatma. And Srila Prabhupada is our founder Acharya. Acharya means one who teaches by example. So in that, he's setting the example for what we should do. What we need to do is just have full faith in the Acharyas, in the Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, and don't worry about our disqualifications. Don't dwell too much in the fact that I don't have the support, I don't have the financial resources, I don't have the knowledge. Just, pray to Krishna for inspiration and go with it, and go with Krishna's flow, and wait on. As long as our plan is aligned with Krishna, then even if we're not sure if it's aligned, if it's completely aligned, but at least in a general sense, if our intention is to please Krishna and to please the devotees, and it's generally speaking, it's not for our sense gratification, it's for Krishna. We're trying to spread Krishna consciousness, which we know Krishna wants in some way. Then Krishna will tweak. He'll make little course corrections here and there to make sure that we're on the right path. So we can take inspiration from Srila Prabhupada in this respect, and also from Rukmini in this respect, that no matter how powerful the opposing elements are, they're all going to be struck down by the divine hand of Krishna. And the plan that's going to prevail is Krishna's plan. And we just need to make sure that our plan for our lives is aligned with that plan, and it will be sure to be successful. So I'm going to stop here. Yes, Prabhu.
Plan also that these demons act like this. I mean, that's their dharma, so to speak, in the plan of Krishna. These demons have to be there,
right,
in order for the pastime to be there. So we should understand that certain times difficulties are there because Krishna, the difficulties are supposed to be there for a reason. So, I mean, it's not like everything always is perfect. It never is.
Yeah, so these opposing elements are actually very helpful for us, because they kind of like put some fire under us, and then fire purifies us. Just like you put butter on the fire. If you just keep butter in a pot, it's never going to become ghee, but you have to put it on the fire, or the process of refining, oil or something, petroleum. It's like it has to go through a lot of, or firing pottery to make it hard. Otherwise it just stays weak and crumbly, and as soon as it gets wet, it's going to melt. So to make our bhakti very resolute, very firm, and pure, unalloyed, right? How do metals get to be unalloyed? And then Prabhupada got that term unalloyed from a steel company, unalloyed steel. So how do you get a metal to be not mixed with other alloys, which is what unalloyed means? You have to melt it. You have to put it in the fire and, like that. So it's only through going through fire, through facing opposition and conflict and difficulties in life, that we're actually able to get purified, so that our bhakti will become bhakti ekaya, unalloyed bhakti, which is what we need, anya abhilashita shunyam, right? Yes?
In regards to the demons, what struck me is the fact that they are there for the pastime, but they're there for us to find ourselves in the demons.
They're there for us to
find ourselves.
Find ourselves?
In the different modalities of the demons. In other words, it's not like the demons are those bad people. They can be part of us also. Because we have the demonic mentality, so we can recognize in the demons certain defects that are ours, and that's why we recognize them. And another thing I was going to say is that it's extremely important to have faith. And faith is not something that can be just construed. It can be just, created. It has to come from the level of purification that one is aiming at. And how important it is to establish, like you did, what is the foundation. Krishna is everything. Krishna and his energies. Everything is Krishna and everything is Krishna's. And there's the unity there, no duality. Mm-hmm. And once we know that, then we can start operating at a level of developing our faith.
Yeah.
Once we understand that at some level, even if it is theoretically, once we understand it, then we can start proceeding further to the point that fear can be something that eventually will be eliminated. Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to appreciate the points that you made.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Krishna Priya.
So you're spending a lot of time studying and researching for it, which was a very good example. And one thing that keeps coming to me when we were speaking today is the timing for things. That Krishna has his own timing. And that is shown also in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the case between the fight between the demons and the demigods. And at times it's brought up, well, this is not the time. This is the time that the demons are successful, or sometimes it, slay the demons before the night comes, because that's the time they become stronger. Or it was even like in the Mahabharata, this is the time of Dharma, so then we see how the demons take birth in the family of kings. Mm-hmm. And so we can see so much how things is timing in our own life. So Srila Prabhupada, he received the instruction from a spiritual master when he was 23 years old, to travel the world and preach, and in English. But we see there were so many apparently obstacles, like I mentioned last night, like Jhansi. He had everything set up, and then it was turned into a women's meeting group.
Yeah.
And so many, he was bored by a bull. So many things happened, but that was all Krishna's arrangement, so that when he did come, it was going to be like the explosion that took place the right time. So it seems that in our own devotional life, we have to have that patience, that we endeavor, we do what we can do, but there's a particular timing for everything. And to really be aware of the timing, even in our own life. When is it time to go forward, or when is it time to retreat and build forces,
Yeah.
When is it time to be out there? When is it time to go more inward? So I was just reflecting on the importance of timing.
Yeah, that's great. And that's why Rupa Goswami says, Utsaha Nishchaya Daryat. Those three things. So we need to be enthusiastic about doing something for Krishna, and we need to be confident that, Krishna's, that eventually it will be successful, but also we need to be patient. Because if patience is not there, then we might get frustrated and give up. So we need to be patient that, like Srila Prabhupada, the whole first year, no results, right? And sometimes he was even going to the pier, going to the harbor, looking at the Jaladuta schedule and seeing when the next boat was going back. But ultimately, because he had faith in the words of his guru and the will of Krishna, then he's like, no, I have to stay. So sometimes things, we may feel like, well, I have this plan and I thought it was aligned with Krishna's plan, but somehow it's not working, so maybe it's not. But that may not be the case. It may just mean that we need to just wait, just keep going and persevere and have faith and keep trying. And also Prabhupada was always making adjustments. So that's the fine-tuning, that Krishna's like, okay, I'm going to the West, I'm going to preach in the English language, I have my books, but then, this didn't work, so try this. That didn't work, so try that. And in that way, then it became very, streamlined from a broad sense of, okay, I'm just going to go preach in the English language, to this is exactly what I'm going to do. So Krishna directs us that way, but in his time. He brings clarity gradually. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's actually a nice example, because I remember when I used to do contra dancing when I was in college, and I didn't know how to do things. So I would be dancing with a more experienced dancer, and then he would be kind of like moving me, like we're trying to do the waltz, and I was putting my foot, and he would literally be like moving me in such a way that my foot had to go in the right place, or So Krishna does that when he dances. We're just kind of like, just have to allow ourselves to be moved by Krishna, and he'll make sure we put our feet in the right place. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Thank you.
Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Enam Kanvandam Aravindanalayatapsam Varhavatam Samasitam Buddhasundarangam Kandar Bhagom Vikamaniya Vishesha Shobham Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Angani Yasa Sakalen Priya Priti Manti Vasyanti Panti Kayanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Govindam Adipurusham.
Yasomati Nandana Ranjana Kana Yasomati Nandana Ranjana 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 Kana Yasomati Nandana Rajana Ranjana Gokula Ranjana Kana Gokula Madana Manohara Gopi Paranadana Madana Manohara Gopi Paranadana Madana Manohara Gopi Paranadana Madana Manohara Kaliya Damana Vidana Kaliya Damana Vidana Kaliya Damana Vidana Manaminana Amala Harina Mamiya Vilasa Amala Harina Mamiya Vilasa Amala Harina Mamiya Vilasa Mamiya Vilasa Vipinan Purandara Navina Nagara Bora Vamsivadana Subhasa Vipinam Purandara Navina Nagara Bora Vamsivadana Subhasa Vipinam Purandara Navina Nagara Bora Vamsivadana Subhasa Vipinam Purandara Navina Nagara Vamsivadana Subhasa Rajajana Palana Surakula Nasana Rajajana Palana Surakula Nasana Rajajana Palana Surakula Nasana Rajajana Palana Surakula Nasana Nanda Godanurakulaya Nanda Godanurakulaya Nanda Godanurakulaya Nanda Godanurakulaya Govinda Madhava Navanita Taskara Govinda Madhava Navanita Taskara Govinda Madhava Navanita Taskara Govinda Madhava Navanita Taskara Sundara Nanda Gopala Sundara Nanda Gopala Sundara Nanda Gopala Sundara Nanda Gopala Yamuna Tatachara Gopi Vasanahara Rasara Kika Kripa Moya Yamuna Tatachara Gopi Vasanahara Rasara Sika Kripa Moya Yamuna Tatachara Gopi Vasanahara Rasara Sika Kripa Moya Yamuna Tatachara Gopi Vasanahara Rasara Sika Kripa Moya Sri Radha Vallabha Vrindavana Natabara 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 Bhakati Vinoda Shraya Bhakati Vinoda Shraya Bhakati Vinoda Shraya Bhakati Vinoda Shraya Yasomati Nanda Nandana Brajabaranagara Gokula Ranjana Kana Yasomati Nandana Brajabaranagara Gokula Ranjana Kana Amala Harinam Amiya Vilasa Amala Harinam Amiya Vilasa Amala Harinam Amiya Vilasa Amala Harinam Amiya Vilasa Govinda Madhava Navanita Taskara Govinda Madhava Vinita Taskara Sri Radha Vallabha Vrindavana Natabara Sri Radha Vallabha Vrindavana Natabara Bhakati Vinodashraya Bhakati Vinodashraya Bhakati Vinodashraya Bhakati Vinodashraya Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Golokananda Radha Golokananda Radhe 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 Jaya Giri Govardhan Giri Govardhan Giri Govardhan Jaya Giri Govardhan Jaya Giri Govardhan Giri Govardhan Jaya Giri Govardhan Jaya Giri Govardhan Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Jai Shri Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Shri Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Shri Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Shri Radhe Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Shri Shri Gauranitai Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Golokananda Ki Jai Lord Krishna is beloved son of Yashoda, transcendental lover in the land of Braj, the delight of Gokula, known by the nickname Kana, the wealth of the lives of the gopis, the attractor of Cupid and punisher of the serpent Kaliya. These pure holy names of Lord Hari are full of sweet nectarian pastimes. Lord of the 12 forests of Braj, ever youthful, the best of lovers, the player of the flute and the excellent dresser, protector of the inhabitants of Braj, destroyer of demoniac dynasties, keeper and tender of Nanda's cows, giver of pleasures to cows, land, and spiritual senses, husband of the goddess of fortune, butter thief, and beautiful little cowherd boy of Nanda Maharaj, wanderer of the Yamuna riverbanks, thief of the garments of the gopis, enjoyer of the mellows of the rasa dance, very merciful, lover and beloved of Sri Radha, the great dancer of Vrindavan, and the only shelter of Bhakti Vinod Thakur. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai. And a reminder that there's Harinam on Friday night for the last Friday celebration in Hillsborough. It's at the corner of Margaret and Churton. It's like a festival, and a lot of people are there. So please come between 6 and 8 on Friday evening. Chaito Darpanam Marjanam Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam Shreya Kairavya Chandrika Vitaranam Vidyavadu Jivanam Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam Pratipanam Pranamrita Swananam Sarvatma Snapanam Parvijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatrapita Niyamita Smarane Nakala Etadrishita Vakripa Bhagavan Mamapi Dordaiva Midrishami Hajjani Nanuraga Trinada Pisunichena Torora. Stunning today. Yanina Manadena Kirtani Nahari Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitam Va Jagadisha Kamaye Mama Janmani Janmani Ishvare Bhavatad Bhaktir Ahoitaki Twai Ainanda Tanujakikaram Patitamam Vishame Bhavam Buddha Kripayata Vapada Pankaja Stita Duli Sajashim Vachintaya Nayanam Galadashu Daraya Varanam Gad Gadaradaya Gira Pulakirna Shitam Vapukata Tava Namagrahame Bhavishyati Yugayatam Namishena Chakshusha Pravashayatam Shunayatam Jagat Sarvam Govindam Virahename Ashlisha Vapadamritam Nanastumam Adarshanam Marmata Karotuva Yatatatava Vidadatu Lampato Mat Prananatas Eva Napara. Victory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life, of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, congregational chanting of your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you've invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should chant void of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O Son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. Oh, my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of